For a long time, the Montreal Canadiens have been looking for a bona fide superstar, and they had a really solid player in Max Pacioretty, but he was never that superstar caliber player that can give you a point per game on a regular basis. And the last time they even had somebody crack 70 points was Tomas Plekanec back in the 2009-2010 season. And when the Canadiens went out this offseason and made the move to send Galchenyuk to Arizona in exchange for Max Domi, a lot of us thought Marc Bergevin had officially lost his mind and that Max Domi was not going to be the player they wanted. But early on in this season, Max Domi has been exploding and really showing that potentially he can be a point per game player and be the star player that the Montreal Canadiens have been looking for a very long time. While it is still early on in the season, and more than likely Max Domi will slow down a little bit, I definitely think he is still capable of giving this Montreal Canadiens team around a point per game, and that's something they have not had in a very long time. I mean, you look at his stats this year already compared to last year, it is pretty remarkable. Last year with Arizona, played in all 82 games and only had 9 goals, which I believe like 5 or 4 of those were on an empty net, and 36 assists for 45 points. Max Domi really had trouble putting the puck in the net last season. But this year, that is not the case. 18 games played already for Montreal and 10 goals, one more than he had all of last season, and 12 assists for 22 points. Being the number one option on this Montreal Canadiens team, I think he's thriving. Obviously, he is getting help from guys like Jonathan Drouin and Thomas Tatar, but a lot of those little acquisitions that the Montreal Canadiens made where people kind of made fun of them are kind of working out now. The one like Max Domi, obviously the Jonathan Drouin one wasn't looking too good, but he's having a pretty solid season. And Thomas Tatar is playing very well too, as that is what they got back for Max Pacioretty, and obviously Nick Suzuki is still a very solid prospect that is probably going to come up in the next 2 to 3 years, and they still have Jesperi Kotkaniemi, so things aren't looking that bad for Montreal. Carey Price has been pretty decent this year as well, giving them a chance to win games, and when you have a guy that your team can rely on to score goals like Max Domi in that top line, and obviously they still have Brendan Gallagher, it just takes a lot of pressure off you because you're not scared to fall behind because you'll be like, oh, no one can score a goal to get us back in this game, because Max Domi has been huge. He's scored clutch goals this year, all of that good stuff, and he's really somebody that the Montreal Canadiens fan base can latch onto. Obviously, they kind of had that with Max Pacioretty, but his last couple of years in Montreal, it was kind of well known that it wasn't going to last, and now I really do think that they have their number one guy in Max Domi, and they have a pretty solid supporting cast around him as well. The Canadiens currently own the second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference with a record of 9-6-3, 21 points, and I think that's a lot better than most people thought they would do coming into the season, and that is large part to Max Domi, to Jonathan Drouin, Carey Price, and all those guys. They have a really good supporting cast this year and have been getting help all around, and remember, they still don't even have Shea Weber, and when he does come back towards the end of the season, I think that is going to be a huge boost to this team. Will they keep it up and make the playoffs? I'm not quite sure. I really do hope for the Canadiens' sake, though, that Max Domi does keep it up and be a player that can give them a point per game, because that is something that they have been dying for, and I really do like Max Domi. I was a fan of him in Arizona, but sometimes that's all it takes for a player to really break out and become a superstar, is a change of scenery, and hopefully that is the case for Max Domi, and this isn't a fluke. But he certainly has been showing all of the making of becoming a superstar in the NHL. And like I said earlier, they still have a lot of good young prospects as well. And this Montreal rebuild might not last as long as a lot of people thought it would coming into the year. But now I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. If you're a Montreal fan especially, what have your impressions been so far on Max Domi? He is finally looking like the player that he was supposed to be when he came into the NHL. Obviously, he was an electric player when he played for Team Canada in the World Juniors, a fantastic player in juniors, and just an all-around very solid player that was suspected to be a pretty decent NHLer as well, and he's finally showing that. He definitely has the making of being an all-star in the NHL this year. I certainly hope he does keep up that pace, because for Montreal, having an all-star like Max Domi and him really being the face of the franchise for this season, I think would be huge for the organization, and I think it would finally take a lot of heat off of Marc Bergevin as well, because he's made a lot of suspect moves over the past couple of years, but this Galchenyuk for Domi trade is is definitely not looking like one of those. Galchenyuk has been playing pretty solid for Arizona, but I definitely think Max Domi has been the better player of the two, even though we've only seen a small sample size of Galchenyuk because he was injured to start the year. But nonetheless, Max Domi has looked like a stud for the Montreal Canadiens. He's a very fun player to watch. I picked him up in fantasy hockey a couple of weeks ago, and it was probably the best decision I've made all year in fantasy because he's been absolutely insane. I think he's ranked like top 30 on Yahoo Fantasy Sports. But this isn't a fantasy video. This is just talking about how good Max Domi has been so far. So I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. Is Max Domi going to keep this up, and can he be the future face of the franchise for the Montreal Canadiens? So that is going to wrap up the video. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and make sure to let me know down in the comment section any video suggestions, anything you guys want to see at all. I apologize for taking so many breaks over the past couple of months. Things have been really busy. I'm going to try my hardest this time to really stay consistent and keep you guys updated as well. Make sure to follow me on Twitter because I do update you guys on there a lot. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.